You're listening to the AfterBuzz TV network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Dean. Johnson.
From the AfterBuzz Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and Bing.com, and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is AfterBuzz TV's America's Next Top Model After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. If you'd like to buzz in on tonight's show, you can buzz us at 424-256-1729. That's 424-256-1729. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AfterBuzz TV's America's Next Top Model After Show.
Hi, Top Model fans. Being is for doing. I'm Amanda Fields, and I'm going to do an episode of AfterBuzz TV, America's Next Top Model, Cycle 20, episodes 1 through 3. And just so you know a little bit about me, I'm Amanda. I've been a model for the past 10 years in New York, LA, and Europe. And I actually was a guest star on one of the episodes of America's Next Top Model with Zach Posen. They had 7 remaining contestants. They brought in 7 established models, including me, to work with the contestants. But what they didn't know is that we were there to be the mean girls, give them a hard time, and see who could handle the pressure on the runway. Then they revealed that we were all just acting. So let's get to the episode, shall we? We have a lot to talk about today. This is pretty cool because it's the first time that they have included guys and girls. So you have an interesting mix of competition here this season, because how do girls and guys even compete with each other for the prize? So we'll have to watch and see as the season goes on how they incorporate that, because, you know, it's a different challenge to walk on the runway for a girl in heels versus a guy walking in flat shoes. So as we watched the 2-hour premiere of Guys vs. Girls, America's Next Top Model, we find out that the winner will get a spread in Nylon magazine, which is huge, a contract with Next Model Management, which is a very good top agency, and a $100,000 ad campaign with Guess. And as a lot of you might know, Guess is a very big American brand that has launched careers as well as set the bar very high for the models. It's all about classic, all-American good looks, as well as a little bit of edginess thrown in. So even though it's guys versus girls, there's only going to be one winner, which I kind of think they should have a guy and a girl win. That's just my opinion. But the judges this year include male supermodel Rob Evans, and I don't know about you girls, but he has some eye candy. And so there's 35 semifinalists that go on to LA from the New York callbacks. And my first thought is, oh my God, here we go. It's another Zoolander situation with all these male models. But it is an interesting mix, and I have to say it makes for good TV. It's almost a little bit like America's Next Top Model Real World, but it is pretty good. And they have them do this runway show that involves the girls on one side of the room, the guys on the other side, and each male model has to choose a female model to walk down the runway with. They have some masquerade ball masks, and the girls are in black lingerie looks, and the guys are in some interesting black pants, and most of them have no shirt on. Some of them have suspenders or a bow tie, but they meet each other on the runway, walk down the steps, which is challenging enough in heels. Then they get to the end of the runway and pose, take off their masks, and have to kiss each other and pose and work it together. And it's all about that chemistry. Now, I think some of these models were chosen because of the challenge that would bring to them of working with a member of the opposite sex on the runway or in a photo shoot, because some of them have boyfriends or girlfriends back home. There's one model, Jeremy, who's 19 and a virgin, which is not that uncommon, I don't think, but you know, they make a point of it with him being uncomfortable on the runway. And we have a really interesting contestant this year, Verge, who's actually a 19-year-old transgender female who's born a male. So she's going through this intense hormone therapy right now. So it's very challenging to sort of try and keep her head straight in the competition without feeling so overwhelmed by all of the challenges that are in front of her, the long work days, the just competitiveness of all the other people around. But it's very cool that all of the male models and female models are like supporting her. They all want her to do well. They want her to be in the competition. Some of the other people working with the contestants this year is, of course, Kelly Catrone, who I've actually had the honor of working with in a couple of fashion shows here in LA. And she can be very commanding. She's a very strong presence. And it's good to just take it all in and really listen to what she has to say. But we find out that some of the models don't bode so well with her strong personality. One of the contestants, I think her name is Clea. She actually had some things to say to her, and I'm not sure if that was the first or second episode, but I'll just say it now. She kind of had this moment backstage with Kelly where she looked at her and said, "You come on a little too strong, you know, it seems a little bit bitchy, you know, why do you act like that with the models? It's a little scary." And then Kelly Catrone looks at her and says, "Excuse me, I did not ask you for your advice." So she kind of gave that to her. And also we have Johnny Wuchek, who is a photographer and gives them fantastic advice along the way. And we have, of course, Tyra Banks. And Brian Boy is the social media expert, which is another new twist this season, because not only are there scores being tabulated from the challenge and the runway, but also from social media presence. Who has the most fans online? Which is interesting for the show, but I don't know that for modeling, is that a factor? I mean, it can be. I think maybe when they're narrowing down a list of models to choose for a commercial, maybe a brand says, well, who has the most Twitter followers? Who has the most fans on Facebook, on their fan page? So that could be an interesting twist to the season. So they have this runway show, and this poor girl, I don't know if you pronounce it Angel or Angel, Angel. I thought, first of all, when I saw her talking in her interview to the camera, her one-on-one, she is so beautiful. I thought she looked like Halle Berry. I mean, she had a really nice presence in front of the camera. I think she photographs well, but she came out on the runway and her legs were just like a baby deer trying to walk for the first time. And I just feel like, girl, you should have practiced in heels at home every day before you came to be on the show, because her legs were just wobbling, her feet were turning. It was like she couldn't balance ever on the heels. So it was a little bit shocking when we're on cycle 20 and she's on the show and doesn't know how to walk in heels. I mean, I know that this is new for a lot of these people. They've never modeled, so I want them to feel good about how they've done. And like I said, she's gorgeous. But the walking in heels thing for her, I was just not impressed. Some early standouts were Renee, who I believe was Miss Trinidad and Tobago. She even talked about her pageant wave. And she came out there, though, and there was not a hint of beauty pageant. It was just strong fashion runway walk. She did a great job. She stole the show. I didn't even really remember the male model that she was on the runway with. She totally took all the attention from him, which is what they were looking for. And let's see, who else stood out to me? Dawn stood out to me. he just already looked like a real male model that you might see on a runway in Europe. Let's see who else. Well, there were so many contestants in the first episode that I got just a lot. A lot of people were really over the top. Some of them were over the top in a good way, some of them not so much. Now, Corey is an openly gay male contestant, and he's very proud of it, and I think that's a beautiful thing. And he actually decided, instead of picking a female to go down the runway with, he chose a male model. He chose Ryan, which was smart on his part because Ryan didn't really stand out. Corey was the one that stole the show. And he said, well, you know, I have to do something to get their attention, right? So that was a good thing. I thought, oh no, is he going to get in trouble for that, for not wanting to work with a girl? But it worked in his favor. And so let's get down to the interview day. We learned a little bit about their backstories. We learned that Jeremy was actually a chubby kid. He was bullied at school. And finally, his mom encouraged him to start swimming and doing water polo. And now look at Jeremy. He is a gorgeous male model. He has a great body, good bone structure, good muscle tone. And the judges were saying, you know, you really have a great body, but you need to understand how to pose and how to work it, because in this picture on the runway, it ended up making you not look so great. It wasn't very flattering the way that you were standing. That was from Rob. And I think they were right. I think, you know, when you really show off your body with the right angles on the runway or just in a photo shoot, it can really make someone look 10 times better, or in the other case, 10 times worse. Let's see, who else? Oh, there was a male model named Ronald who actually had some potential, but he came in talking about how he was trained to be a model, and they were like, who are you trained by? And he goes, my manager, DJ Stokes. And they're all just laughing because it's like, who are you? Who is this guy? Like, don't even start talking about that, because it's like they're about to train you in their own way. Don't worry about what you did beforehand. Marvin, they kind of start calling him Starvin' Marvin because he's like really wanting to be with a girl very much. He has a really great story too. He's 20 years old. He grew up in the South Bronx with 7 brothers and his parents in a 1-bedroom apartment. And he was saying, you know, as a kid, I would get off the bus and go walk in a different apartment building because I was embarrassed to go in my own building in front of my friends because my dad was a janitor there. And he didn't want his friends to know. He was getting made fun of, and it was just too much for him. But now he's like, my dad is a janitor. My dad is a janitor. He's so proud of his dad, and it was a really beautiful moment. And yeah, I think he's going to do really well. He was an early favorite of the judges and of mine. He really has a great structure to his face, and he knows how to like angle everything right. And he has this intense look in his eyes. So Jordan is an early standout too. She's 6'1". She was married and divorced at 18, which we hear throughout the episode like 3 or 4 times. Like, okay, we got it. Now she's 19, and she's really, really striking. She even has a strong presence, like almost even a athletic presence. But the judges were mentioning that she would shy away from the camera a little bit. She might have some confidence issues to work on. She would pose and sort of hide her neck, and they wanted her to be more proud of herself and really stand tall and make a stronger impact to the camera. Let's see. Okay. Chris S. is an interesting contestant too, because he's only 5'8", which is short for a male model. However, Tyra said, you know what? You can just be 5'10.25" on your card. So he started saying he's 5'10.25". And let's see, who else stood out? Oh, Corey, also, I know I talked about him a little bit earlier, but he said that at school they made fun of him a lot. They even called him Tyra. And just because he wanted to be a model and he's gay, and I mean, that must have been really difficult going through school like that, getting made fun of in the hallway. But he was so happy to be on stage with Tyra, and he's like, yeah, look who's calling me Tyra now, Tyra Banks. So we get to the 26 semifinalists because the models show up at their house. They take the masquerade theme from the fashion show and put masks on a fence in front of the house. So the models are invited to go look at the masks, and if their face is on one, then they're in the house, and if it's not there, then they're going home. So they know pretty quickly who's in and who's out. They start announcing who's in, but they only announced 18 names instead of all 26 at first, so it was kind of like, okay, I think we know who's kind of going to the next round, whoever they're following along. So they have a photo shoot at the W Hotel on Hollywood and Vine. It's a projection up on the side of the building, and people that are passing by can vote. I think it was via text, but it looked like it was a hashtag, so it could have been also on Twitter. But since they film it before it comes on, it's not live. I would think it would be text messages. So they show the images of all the models, and after their shoot, they're able to go and sort of work the crowd and talk to the people on the street and say, vote for me, vote for me. So it's all about being a model, but this season it's kind of a popularity contest. Let's just be honest. So we have a model that decides to exit the show. They're about to announce the top 16, but this contestant goes to Tyra and says, I don't think I can go on. And it's actually Verge. She comes in and talks to Tyra and says, you know, I'm so honored that you picked me on Instagram. I'm so excited to be here, but I don't think I can handle this kind of pressure right now with my medication and the hormone therapy. And Tyra said she had done some research on this, and that kind of therapy is like being in the early stages of pregnancy, but even more crazy. So she understood why she wanted to leave, and I thought it was just a really great way that they handled that situation on the show. Everyone was so supportive of her, and I really do wish her the best. She photographs amazingly well, and I hope we see more from her in the industry. So we finally have a top 16 models for Cycle 20. Alessandra, Mike, Renee, Corey, Jordan, Dawn, Gianna, Christopher S., Clea, Jeremy, Nina, Phil, Bianca, Chris H., Kanani, and Marvin. Then the CEO of Guess comes out, Paul Marciano, and says that they're going to be in a big fashion show for Guess. We find out that it's not just a typical runway show, that they have to walk down vertically down the side of a tall building rigged up by a wire. Then getting unhooked and walking down the runway. Oh, and guess what else? It's raining. That's right, raining in LA. So, which makes for good TV, but terrible for the models because it's hard enough to go down a runway in heels, but the runway is wet from the rain. They didn't even really talk about that, but I can just tell you right now, that's very, very scary to walk on a slippery runway. So now we're into episode 2, and this is something that I think is fun to watch at home as a TV viewer, but horrible as a model to be rigged up and have to go down a building like Spider-Man. And, well, hopefully not like Spider-Man, hopefully like a fierce model. But some of these models had such a hard time. And I'm laughing because it was funny on my TV, but I'm horrified inside thinking about actually having to do something like that. And I have never personally had any sort of audition or casting saying anything about walking down the side of a building for a fashion show. Now, that might have happened in the past with other models, but that hasn't ever come up in my career, and it's been a long time, so This is just another thing that doesn't necessarily represent the real world of fashion and the real world of modeling. It's basically making it more exciting TV viewing. They even had thunder sound effects, and I was saying, oh my goodness, it doesn't thunder in LA. There's not really thunderstorms, but they made it more dramatic that way. So as you watch the fashion show, you see the male models come down one side of the building and the females go down the other, and they're going down 2 at a time. And a lot of these, well, the girls I think had more trouble than the guys. But a lot of the models, as soon as they were standing up, rigged up on top of the building, as soon as they tilted the models down to start walking, a lot of them just wipe out right away. The tilting throws them off, and they just have to struggle to get back up. A lot of them were able, though, to maintain their composure for the most part, even though they had this terrified look in their eyes. Don is actually terrified of heights. He is so scared when he finds out that's what they have to do. But he makes it down without a problem, and that was really strong of him. I applaud his effort, because tackling your fear that way and facing it head on instead of just saying, I don't want to do it, I mean, that's got to be very difficult for someone who's afraid of heights. Renee was the only model who didn't wipe out at all. Maybe it's all those years as a beauty queen, but honey, that was fabulous. And I thought that was a crazy challenge, but she was able to do it. And so the winner of each challenge this season will get to stay in the Tyra suite and get a head-to-toe guest look. So Renee was the winner, but they also mentioned that Marvin did a good job too. And I am not sure if I wrote, yes, I did. The guest judge for the guest challenge was Jessica Hart. She was a model for Guess and is stunningly gorgeous. She has that really cool look of having a little gap between her front teeth. I thought that was adorable. And she watched the runway show under an umbrella. All the people had to sit under an umbrella watching the models wipe out on the side of a building. Okay, now I did not hear this term before. I've heard smize, of course, but maybe you guys can help me out. I don't know what tooching is. I think it has to do with kind of sticking your butt out when you pose, but they kind of invented a new term this season. Booching for the boys. I'll let your imagination run wild with that one. So Mike is feeling a little down after this, because with his challenge with the fashion show, Kelly Catrone says that it's the worst runway walk she's ever seen. And which I don't know, because don't you remember seeing Angel's walk like a day ago? That was pretty terrible. But apparently, well, they made it look like he was drinking about 8 glasses of wine, but I know it's TV and people exaggerate, so I don't know how much wine he had. But he was definitely feeling down about how he performed, and in the photo shoot, he wasn't super confident yet. And to clarify, Mike is a male model who Tyra Banks found herself. He was working in an ice cream truck, and she was there with a friend, and it wasn't until she started talking to him that he even realized it was Tyra. He was like, oh my God, it's Tyra Banks. And she said he had a great look, and he does. And she wanted him to be on the show, and he said, okay, how can I turn this opportunity down? He never even thought about being a model, but this is his chance. And so he was, I think it all hit him all at once. The pressure of standing up to Tyra's expectations, and, you know, he didn't feel like he did a good job. So he was sitting around the model house just drinking a lot of wine. He ends up breaking a coffee mug all over the floor, and it seemed like he was a little bit belligerent, but he manages to redeem himself. Tyra mentions some interesting advice with posing your body for the camera. She says it's important to break your body, meaning don't stand too stiff and too straight. And there's something called ticking, which is like tick, 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 like moving your body a little bit each time for the camera. I thought that was a good way to put it because I've kind of known that you need to change your pose with every click of the camera, but the way she described it, I thought that was very cool. And let's see. So they have a big photo shoot in this episode all about weddings. And of course, Jordan talks about the fact that she was married and divorced at 18. And that this is bringing back terrible memories for her. And they pair the models up to be, you know, pretend couples getting married. And Jordan and Jeremy are up first. And they have a theme of nudist wedding. But of course, they're wearing skin-colored clothes, thank goodness. Of course, they pair the model that has been married and divorced with the model that is a virgin and is going to be, of course, very nervous about the nudist wedding. But it ended up being one of the strongest shots of the night. They had something called a fixel in this episode that I have to admit, I haven't even heard of that. It's a photo with an element of the picture that moves. And there was an interesting interpretation of that of Tyra on their TV in the model house. They get the Tyra mail, and it's a beautiful photo of her with her hair blowing in the breeze. So, of course, I instantly thought of the moving pictures in Harry Potter. I know that that's not very model-y of me to think of, but I wonder if any of you guys out there thought of the same thing. So the photographer for this wedding challenge is Douglas Friedman, who is an amazing photographer who shot for some of the biggest magazines. Now, this couple was funny to me. Mike and Alessandra, they had the shotgun wedding. They made her look pregnant, and there were 2 children models in the shot, and she was pushing the stroller. So that was the element of the picture that moved, was the pushing of the stroller. Oh, and in the last shot with Jeremy and Jordan, the element that moved was the blowing grass around them. Now, Kanani and Gianna had a same-sex wedding, and Gianna really stood out there. They had her dressed in the tuxedo. Kanani just seemed kind of, instead of looking innocent, she wound up looking a little boring, I think, to the judges. Corey and Clea had a biker wedding, and Corey got a response from the judges saying, "Were you playing the girl or the man in this photo?" And he said, "Well, I was the man, obviously," but they challenge him to be more masculine. Even though they used makeup to look like they had tattoos all over their bodies, Clea was the one who looked more manly. Chris H. and Dawn had a gay wedding, and Corey played the father, and the photo element that moved in that one, he was waving his finger at them. It was very cute. Phil got stuck doing a wedding photo all by himself. He had an objectophilia wedding. And I don't know about you, but I did not know what that was until this episode. Basically, you're in love with an object and you want to marry it. So here he is with an old TV set and a remote control, and he's supposed to be marrying a remote. So that was not very successful, but I don't know how it could be. Tyra was saying that Dawn should have held the remote in a more affectionate way. All right, Tyra. So Nina, Marvin, and Bianca have a polygamist wedding. They also have 3 of the other female models sitting in front of them at the pew, I guess you could say, at the front of the church. And they're swaying. All 3 girls are swaying together, and that's the movement there. And Marvin outshone all those girls. So he he stood out the most, which was a big challenge because he not only had the 2 female models side by side of him, but the 3 girls in front swaying, and still he stole the show. Chris S. and Renee had a hip-hop wedding, and I think that photo for me was kind of forgettable, but I think that oh, right, Chris S., they thought he looked kind of like a butch lesbian. Not my words. That was Kelly's words. Kelly Catrone. And Renee, they said that she was supposed to be more of like a debutante and was marrying this guy to like make her family upset with her. But she ended up looking kind of trashy. Then they had some extras in the background, other models from the show, like making it rain with some money, and that was like what was moving around them. So the big winner from this wedding photo shoot challenge was Marvin. He stole the show with 5 female models in the picture with him. He made fabulous eye contact with the camera. He was like expressing a deep emotion through the lens, so that was really strong of him. And we have Dawn in a 2nd place finish for the best photo. Then they go through and announce who came in 3rd, 4th, 5th, all the way to the bottom. And we have a final 3 of Phil, Mike, and Chris S., who are with the lowest score of between the runway challenge, the photo shoot challenge, and the social media score. And I just have to wonder how much that social media score really affects the decision-making process, or if that's just sort of a trick to throw in to make it more interesting to the viewers. I mean, I think it is cool to have Brian Boy on there, who's a fashion blogger, and I like his perspective and how he gives them feedback on what people are saying about them. But I just wonder how real is that, because they're filming this probably a couple of months at least in advance of when it airs. So how can people be critiquing their pictures? This is something I have to find out for myself. I must go online and go on Twitter and just see what all the fuss is about, because if they're releasing these images before the episodes, I'm a little confused. You guys tweet me. I'll give you my Twitter name at the end of the show, and you can tell me everything you know, because I am a little perplexed. But at first, Bianca gets the lowest score. She was in the picture with Marvin as one of the sister wives, polygamous wives, and they didn't like her pose. They said that she had a great face, but that the rest of her just kind of got lost. And I thought she was going to be the only one going home, but then they say that they have another person going home this week. And it's actually Chris S., the 5'8", 5'10 1/4 guy. I thought he had a very good look, very interesting. I think he could be very successful in TV commercials, or even as an actor if he has a talent for that. But yeah, I guess according to the show, he wasn't really top male model material, but he could be. It would be interesting to follow along with these contestants and see what happens to them along the way. If they actually do sign with agencies, and if they do start working as models, it'll be cool to follow their careers. So even though Bianca and Chris S. go home, Mike actually makes the lowest score of everyone, but manages to stay on the show. So he has a lot stacked up against him. So before I start talking about episode 3, I just want to tell you guys about this really cool little movie. It's called Serial Buddies. And if you've been watching AfterBuzz for a while, you probably heard of it. It's actually on the AfterBuzzTV.com website. It's a cool movie. It's a comedy. And it's produced by the AfterBuzz TV founders Maria Menounos and Kevin Undergaro. It's available now on video on demand, so I believe you can go to your cable and rent it from the menu there. And also, you can go on Amazon.com and I think iTunes as well. And the movie stars two broke girls, Beth Bears, Artie Lang, Kathy Lee Gifford, hello, Christopher Lloyd, Christopher McDonald, and Maria Menounos, and the voice of Henry Winkler, which of course you all remember from Happy Days, Fonzie. And it's so funny. I'm also a fan of Two Broke Girls, so I think Beth Baer is awesome. And it's kind of like Dumb and Dumber with a little bit of Dexter thrown in there. So I don't know about you guys, but I'm a big fan of Napoleon Dynamite. I love Serial Buddies, and just go check it out if you can, if you want to. I think it's hilarious. You should spend some time watching that next time you're looking for a movie to watch. So, all right, are you guys ready? Are you tired of me yet? Because I want to also talk about episode 3. Sorry, I had a little water there. So Tyra Banks and Rob Evans come out, and they're holding hands, and all the models are saying, oh my gosh, are they going to tell us that they're in a relationship? And people have sort of been gossiping about them. Are they an item? Are they dating? And they make it sound like they're going to have this big announcement, but they're saying, oh, our announcement is that we're not actually a couple. They're just trying to teach the models about creating chemistry in a photo. And their big advice is have fresh breath, have tension, and inhale. To make it look like you're really interested in the other person. And Tyra even demonstrated the tension by grabbing Rob's arm. And she said, yeah, you see how you can see I'm grabbing him? So I guess they wanted to show them that it is possible to sell a photo with that kind of chemistry, even if you're not interested in the other person in the slightest. So they pair up the contestants to try this out. And Alessandra is with Phil, and she's just like, well, I guess this is a good challenge as any because he is not attractive to me. And this is coming up later, but spoiler alert, they get makeovers in this episode. So Phil actually becomes a lot more attractive later on. He is the model with the beard, and I totally thought they were going to shave it, but they didn't. So they have a challenge of doing a sexy, fierce photo shoot with Johnny Wuchek, posing with Rob Evans. Some of the contestants will pose with him. Some of the contestants will pose with Alessandra Ambrosio, the famous Victoria's Secret angel. And I'm also a fan of her work. I think she's beautiful, and she really knows how to work the camera and the runway. Tyra also, I have to mention, has been doing makeup throughout these episodes, and she is a very good makeup artist. Perhaps there is a Tyra makeup line in the works. I just made that up, but I think that would be a good reason for her to do makeup on the show. Sarah Silver is the photographer for this photo shoot that's sexy and fierce. So the first team up are Phil and Jeremy, and they're dressed with like a little collar and leather shorts, and it's totally a dominatrix situation. Alessandra is up there with like a whip, and I don't know. These guys, they had like a jar of milk in front of them like they were a cat. Oh, I didn't really like that idea, but they managed to only really do an okay job with her because, of course, she's going to be the focus of that photo. They kind of got overwhelmed by the whole thing. Tyra even said Jeremy looked a little bit like a monkey, and like instead of the milk on the floor, he should have had a banana in front of him. And she said that was basically because of his arm position and where his hands were on the floor. But what are you going to do? What are you going to do in that situation? I don't know. I don't think I've ever had to pose like that, nor do I really want to. Then Clea and Marvin are on a bed with Alessandra. Clea gets a little bit lost in the shuffle in this picture. Marvin does a good job again, but not as strong as his last wedding challenge. Then we have Gianna and Chris with Alessandra. Then there's Dawn and Alexandra with Rob Evans in the elevator, and that's another one of the stronger pictures in the mix. Dawn actually really redeemed himself after the last wedding photo that was pretty forgettable. Renee and Jordan with Rob Evans. Corey and Nina shot with Rob Evans, and Mike and Kanani with Alessandra Ambrosio. Let's see. Okay. I have to get to these makeovers. Kanani was one of my favorite makeovers of the whole show because she went from having long hair, which I don't know if it was all her hair or extensions or whatnot, but she gets a pixie haircut like Halle Berry, and it is so flattering. It makes her face just come out even more, and she's elevated to a new level of sophistication. And now with this haircut, I feel like she could sell so many more products. She could really do skincare and, you know, those Lancome cream ads. Don becomes a blonde. Corey is not happy with his makeover. He had short hair anyway, but first of all, they gave him a buzz cut, which I thought, that looks good. And then it didn't stop there. They took out a razor and just straight up shaved his head. He was pretty much in tears. He was not a fan of this hair look. And it seemed like he kind of went into his shell a little bit. He was more confident before the makeover, but everyone was trying to tell him, this is going to make you more attention worthy to clients. People will either love it or they'll hate it, but it'll be polarizing. All the male models got body waxing, manscaping, and the most interesting male model makeover would have to be Phil. He went from having a beard and just short brown hair. They gave him a weave. They gave a male model a weave. And at first it looked completely stupid. But then I actually said, oh no. But they took him back, gave the weave a haircut, and he came out, for lack of a better term, looking like Jesus hair. They actually had a sound effect. Oh. He had a wreath of flowers on his head. It actually looked really good, I have to say. I was not a fan of the weave idea at first, but it did make a big difference if he was going to keep the beard. Let's see. Jeremy gets some highlights. Mike pretty much looks the same. Alex gets some chocolate brown hair. Oh, yes. Okay, and Jordan goes from having brown hair to a honey blonde. Air quotes, honey blonde. It was not the best blonde. It looked kind of yellowy blonde. Hopefully she'll get it done again throughout the season and it'll even out some more. But she even said they had to do it like 8 times. So it seemed like they had to do some color correcting to get it right. But so far I kind of liked her better as a brunette, but we shall see how it turns out. Renee has straight and black hair. Clea gets long honey-colored waves. So they give her some weave too. Gianna gets a longer bob, like skimming her shoulders. And I think Alexandra goes from blonde to brunette, and it is beautiful. There's also Nina goes red. So we do have a redhead this season. And okay, let me just get to the final results. Clea goes home. They were not impressed with her photo, and they just felt like she wasn't ready to be a top model. Kelly Catrone did not like her attitude, but she was happy that at least she made up for it on the makeover day. Let's see. And actually, the top photo went to Mike, the ice cream truck guy. He went from being the lowest score to the highest score and was able to really come out of his shell and impress the judges and impress the photographer on the shoot. So good job, Mike. I'm looking forward to seeing more of that. Gianna got second highest score. And Don this week was at the bottom of the pack. He's still in, but he had the lowest score of the remaining models. So I hope that gave you enough info on the show so far. And if you want to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, I am at the Runway Queen. I just really appreciate you listening to me go on and on about all these models, and I look forward to seeing you next time.
From Bing.com, executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.